Hey guys, today's video is all about FIRE and whether FIRE's for you, why I disagree with some aspects of FIRE and things like that. So let's get into it. Now for those of you that may not know, what is FIRE? Well, FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. So FIRE is basically a bit of a movement that's going around at the moment. There's a page for it on Reddit and things like that. And many people are following this ideology of FIRE. And what it's about really is becoming financially independent and retiring earlier than you would normally. So most people would retire about 65, 70, and FIRE is about retiring around 35, 40. And obviously there are various ways you can achieve this. A lot of it's about investing and things, putting a lot of money in the stock market, living off dividends, the amount of money you've saved and things, or real estate. Now, one of the issues that I have personally with FIRE is that, the way many people go about it is, obviously you can greatly reduce the amount of money that you need to achieve FIRE, to be financially independent and retire early. By living a lot more frugally, spending a lot less money. You can obviously achieve FIRE within 10 years earlier than perhaps typically. On an average you're going to need a couple of $1 million or something, but the way I've seen recently a lot of people are going about this is they're just spending nothing. So they're just living as cheaply as possible. Their expenses are an absolute minimum, and their strategy for FIRE is to live on nothing and invest everything for a few years and then for the rest of their life live on a very minimal wage. Now for me personally, this isn't it's not a great idea, just because there's always unexpected things, and there's always other expenses that you're not necessarily considering. So if you achieve FIRE and you've got $20,000 a year or something that you're living on, I mean that's a very, very small amount of money. And even 30, I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, and you're not going to be living well. Now, I'm not saying you need to, be living like a multi-millionaire, buying yourself the latest new, SUVs and things, a huge house. I'm not saying that, but living extremely frugally, is that how you want to spend the rest of your life? Never spending anything. Some of these people, I'm not saying everyone that does FIRE, but some of them are extreme, penny pinchers. They're really trying, they save absolutely everything. They don't want to spend on, on any expenses whatsoever. So, take for example, that you're married, you have kids. Well, that's always an expense that carries on throughout life. So you may bring up your kids to the age of 18 and things. They may make mistakes. Things happen sometimes. They may owe money, they may need to borrow some money, and you as a parent, it's good to be able to be in a position where you can help your children out and things, if they do need some help. So if you're only living on $20,000 a year and you're retired at 35, you're not going to be able to really, without obviously dipping into your investments and your savings which you're living off. And that's obviously going to lower the amount that you'll get each month then as well, if you remove some of the money from that. So FIRE, on a whole, financial independence itself is not that difficult to achieve, especially if you're very focused on it. For example, if you bought into real estate instead of stocks, with a mortgage, you got a mortgage to rent out properties, you find one that's fairly cheap. Now if we're talking the United States, you want to go inland, so along the coastal areas. You've got obviously Los Angeles, California, and then you've got like New York, the other side. Extremely expensive property prices. But once you go inland, there are many cheap properties. We're talking $40,000 for a house in certain states and areas, not necessarily, you know, the best areas in the world, but these are places where, you know, the prices of the properties are very cheap, and the rents in general are not bad. So it's, you know, you're buying low and you're renting high basically, and obviously rent increases year on year. So if you bought, you know, a cheap property that perhaps needed a bit of a repair, a little bit of refurbishment, and you had, you know, a small deposit in there, the rent would more than cover the payment for the mortgage. And then obviously if you repair the house, you can then get, you know, a cash out refinance where, you know, based on the new value of the house when it is refurbished, you can then pull more money out. You can then use that, you know, for a deposit on your next property and so on. You do need to look into it a bit. It's not as simple as it sounds, but you know, within a year, if you've got the money and a little bit of time to put into the first property, if you've managed to save yourself up, let's say 50 grand, or, you know, I mean, obviously you can do it with a lot less, but you know, if you have that amount and you can start the process, once you've got, you know, a couple of properties there renting out and things, you'll be financially independent. And I mean, you can easily buy 4 within a year, and with, you know, 4 properties, you're probably looking at, you probably make at least $2,000, you know, profit after paying off, you know, any sort of expenses, any management fees and things. And you know, that's you know, 24,000 a year. And that's also, you know, you need to bear in mind with those kind of things, if you do it, you know, with a company, you can write off the mortgage interest against your earnings and things like that, pay less tax. So, you know, that's one way of becoming financially independent, you know, really relatively quickly. You can probably do that within a few years. I mean, if you start at the age of, you know, 25, by the time you're 30, or at the latest 35, you'll easily be financially independent. And obviously you can just keep earning more and more. But you know, real estate, it's an easy way to become financially independent, but is retiring early once you've achieved that really the best option? Because, you know, when we're talking properties here, the amount of time and things involved in sort of buying the property and doing a bit of a refurbishment, obviously it's best if the refurbishment is mainly cosmetic, but will increase the value substantially. But you know, we're talking about around 3 months. So around about 3 months of work each time you're buying a house, you know, on the paintwork and a bit of refurb. And then it's, you know, it's ready to rent out, and it's a source of passive income. As I said before, rents are always increasing, so it's, you know, the price of houses as well is generally always increasing over years. So real estate's an easy way to achieve, you know, financial independence. But should you buy, you know, 2 or 3 properties and then just stop and retire at the age of 35? You know, it depends on your situation and things like that. If you're someone that's, you know, focused on being child free, or perhaps you're not even interested in being married at all, then obviously it can work out a lot easier. But you know, the idea of FIRE on the whole is not a bad idea. I mean, it's great to be financially independent, where you're not relying on your boss paying your wages and things like that. I'm all for financial independence, but you know, retiring early, I'm not saying you need to do you know, a 9-to-5 job, or you need to do a wage or anything like that, but you know, you can continue doing you know, buying more properties, buying more investments, investing in stocks and things, and you don't need to, you know, completely retire at the age of 35. I mean, obviously that's a very young age to retire, and really it's always good to have something to work towards. It's always good to improve yourself. You don't just want to do, you know, a small amount and then just stop. I mean, that's not the way that I think about things. I'm always trying to improve, you know, to earn more, to do better. So, you know, retiring at 35, that's not for me. It's something I suggest you don't do. I mean, if you can earn more money, and it's relatively, you know, it's not a huge hassle. If you compare it to things, you know, like the stock market, for example, there is a lot more money in general in real estate. You'll get a lot more return on your investment compared to the stock market, just because You know, obviously safely investing in the stock market, in index funds, for example, you're only going to be getting around about 7%, you know, really, at the most. It's not a huge amount of earnings. Once you start to earn more, you know, you'll have to pay tax on that as well. So it all adds up in the end. And obviously, you know, there are certain stocks and things, if you could become knowledgeable about buying single stocks, you know, when the market goes down and then selling them at a later point, then obviously there's a lot of money in that, but it's also extremely risky. And you know, statistically, people that do invest in those kind of stocks, 76% lose all of their money, I believe. So you know, it's not necessarily and that's not even a form of passive income. I mean, if you were doing that, you need to be involved, you know, very much so in the individual stocks, how the company's doing. You need to do a lot of research and things. You need to be constantly on the ball with the market. So it's now not in any way passive. Only, you know, index funds, ETFs, maybe REITs. You know, they're more passive ways. But again, you know, there's you know, lower. There's a lot less money to earn basically, and it just I mean, obviously index funds are fairly passive. You just put your money in and leave it and things. But properties are as well. I mean, once you've got through the first few months with the property, then it's passive. You leave it in the hands of the management company, just pay a few fees there and there, and that's it. And you'll be earning, you know, more rent. You can increase the rent every year. It's up to you, but you know, you can with inflation. And you know, it's just a solid investment there that's going to give you a bit of financial freedom. And you know, once you've done 2 or 3 and you're financially independent in that way, then you could do, you know, you could lower it down. You could do, you know, 1 a year, 1 every 2 years. But you know, it's just not a good idea to retire, you know, at such an early age. I mean, it's always good to have new goals, new things to achieve. Yes, there are other things other than money and stuff, but obviously money allows you, you know, to do more things. If you earn more, you can put more money into your hobbies and things that you enjoy. If you enjoy travelling, if you earn a lot of money, you can travel the world, can't you? So my sort of opinion with FIRE is really, you know, financial independence, perfect, but retiring at 35 or 40 years old, not a good idea. Certainly quitting the rat race, quitting the 9 to 5, yes, but still, you know, be active in, you know, perhaps buying real estate investments, maybe start a company and things. Something that's a little bit more hands-off, but something that still gives you, you know, goals to achieve, grow the company and things like that. And, you know, just keep your mind a bit active, really, because, I mean, if you retire at 35, you've got a long time. You know, I mean, thinking about it realistically, you know, on average, people are working 8 hours a day. When you've got 8 hours extra every day, that's a lot of time if you don't have anything to fill those hours. So it's always good to, you know, to be proactive in the, you know, earning more, investing and things, you know, learn new skills and stuff. So by all means, you know, become financially independent as soon as possible. It's a great idea, but just, you know, consider not retiring so early. You know, allow yourself to have a little bit more spending room, a little bit more of a budget, you know, to work with, rather than, you know, having to be really, you know, very frugal with your spending, you know, for the rest of your life, for, you know, 50 years or more potentially. So, you know, if you can, you know, keep going a bit more, if you can keep earning more, that's my advice really. So thanks for watching the video, guys. If you video a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.